Have you ever heard of the Oracle of Delphi? Of course you have. The Pythia, sitting on her tripod, inhaling sacred vapors and speaking the prophecies of the god Apollo. Kings and commoners alike traveled for miles, bringing offerings and questions about their futures, their wars, and their loves. The prophecies were famously cryptic, open to interpretation. If you cross the river, a great empire will be destroyed. Was it yours or your enemies? That was the risk you took. But what if I told you there was another voice at Delphi? One that wasn't divine at all. Tucked away, almost forgotten, is a lesser-known inscription, a warning that was chiseled into a side entrance, far from the grand promenade where visitors waited. It reads, "Beware the ears below, for not all whispers reach the heavens." This wasn't just poetic flair. It was a literal warning about something lurking just beneath the sacred floor. Imagine the scene, the grand temple, filled with the scent of burning laurel leaves and the low murmur of desperate prayers. A petitioner kneels, whispering their deepest secrets, their greatest fears, their most ambitious plans into the hallowed air, hoping Apollo will hear. But they weren't just speaking to the god. They were also speaking to it, the listener. According to a few fragmented texts and local legends, a creature lived in the hollow space beneath the chamber of the Pythia. It wasn't a demon or a monster in the traditional sense. It was something ancient, something that fed not on flesh, but on secrets. It would press itself against the cold stone, its entire being focused on the vibrations coming from above. It learned to decipher the hopes and dreams of humanity, one whispered prayer at a time. It heard everything. The general planning a surprise attack, the merchant plotting to ruin a rival, the lover planning to elope. And sometimes the listener decided to answer. Before the Pythia could even speak, a low, resonant voice would seem to rise from the very stones beneath the petitioner's feet. It wasn't cryptic like Apollo's words. It was direct, precise, and tempting. It would tell the general exactly how to win. It would give the merchant the perfect piece of information to bankrupt his foe. It gave them not a prophecy, but a plan. And for a while it worked. People who heard this second voice found their wishes coming true with startling accuracy. They got exactly what they asked for, and that was the problem. The universe has a strange sense of balance, and the listener didn't care about a petitioner's well-being, only about the fascinating chain of events their actions would set in motion. It was like a child playing with ants, just to see what they would do. Take the story of Lycomedes, a wealthy landowner obsessed with expanding his estate. He prayed at Delphi for a way to acquire his neighbor's fertile fields. The voice from below told him to divert a small, forgotten stream that ran near his property line. It would, the voice promised, flood a useless patch of his own land, but magically irrigate his neighbors, making them so prosperous they'd willingly sell their original, now less valuable, fields to him for a pittance. Lycomedes did as instructed. The stream was diverted, but a freak summer storm turned it into a raging torrent. It didn't just flood a small patch. It washed away his entire villa, his olive groves, everything. His neighbor, untouched by the flood, ended up buying Lycomedes' ruined land for next to nothing. He got his neighbor's land, just not in the way he'd hoped. He had prayed to acquire his neighbor's land, and in the end, his land became his neighbor's. The wish was fulfilled, literally. Then there was the tale of the unwinnable war. The city-state of Phocis was on the brink of collapse, besieged by a much larger army. Their desperate general went to Delphi. He didn't even have an offering, just a plea. The voice from below gave him a complex, 7-part strategy involving feigned retreats and ambush. It was brilliant. The general followed it to the letter, and against all odds, he shattered the invading army. Phocis was saved. But the victory was so absolute, so humiliating for their enemy, that it bred a thirst for revenge that lasted for generations. The city of Phocis found itself in a state of perpetual conflict, winning battle after battle but never knowing peace. They had asked to win the war, and they did. But the war never truly ended. These kinds of stories started to pile up. Disasters born from perfectly fulfilled wishes. The priests of Apollo grew concerned. The prophecies were becoming too literal, too direct, and too catastrophic. They noticed a pattern. These disastrous outcomes always seemed to happen to petitioners who reported hearing a voice before the Pythia had even entered her trance. A voice that came not from the tripod but from the floor itself? They finally heeded the warning on that old inscription. Something was down there, listening and twisting the fates of men for its own amusement. A decision was made. The original floor of the Adyton, the sacred inner chamber, was to be torn up. A massive new foundation was laid, several feet thick, made of solid marble and reinforced with lead. They raised the floor, creating a much thicker barrier between the world of men and whatever dwelled in the darkness below. After this renovation, the strange, literal prophecies stopped. The Oracle of Delphi returned to her usual cryptic self, her words once again guided by the gods, not by the eavesdropper in the cellar. The listener, cut off from its source of information, its entertainment, was silenced. What's truly fascinating is what modern archaeologists found centuries later. When they excavated the site of the temple, they discovered the remains of that original lower chamber. The space was empty, of course, but all over the stone walls and the underside of the raised floor they found something chilling: scratch marks. Thousands upon thousands of them, deep gouges in the ancient rock. They weren't random. They formed concentric circles, spiraling inward toward the very center of the chamber, right where the petitioner would have knelt. It was as if something had been down there, pacing in circles for centuries, trapped in the dark, listening to the silence. So the next time you read about the Oracle of Delphi, remember the full story. Remember the god who spoke in riddles and the creature who listened in the dark. It's a powerful reminder to be careful what you wish for. You might just get it, literally. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy diving into the hidden corners of history and mythology, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the unknown. See you next time.